Drop it on the random.
Coming up on this week's episode of Hip Hop Now Podcast, Kendrick Lamar is coming out with something new, but it's not an album. Nick Cannon wants smoke where there is none, and De La Soul's catalog may hit streaming services after all. Maybe.
But let's get right to the business.
Read these headlines. This album must be gone. This album must be gone.
Classic albums are. Classic albums are.
Come to Hip Hop Podcast. What up, y'all? I am your host, Vegas, and this is Hip Hop Now Podcast, a podcast designed to catch you up on all things hip-hop music and culture that happened throughout the week. Returning listeners, appreciate you. Glad you came back. New listeners, what up? Hope you stay. Hope you hit that subscribe button, like button, but most importantly, share this content with people you know love hip-hop. Big shout out to hiphopdx.com, djbooth.net. Rest in peace, Ambrosia for Heads. And that's really how we're going to get right into the business. Ambrosia for Heads, a hip-hop site truly dedicated to the purest form of hip-hop. Now, I know some people will be like, well, what do you mean purest form? What I mean is they really didn't have any boundaries as it related to hip-hop, meaning it wasn't all about who's hot or who's on the radio. It was about what's dope. You know what I'm saying? They covered a lot of stories, and a lot of their stories felt credible. It never felt like they were reaching. But maybe there's a reason why, they're folding, and maybe that's the reason. Because they wasn't one of those sites to say, hey, let's talk about everything everybody else is talking about, whether it has to do with hip hop or not, just to get people to click on things. Sort of a sad state of hip hop, because there are a lot of hip hop sites I follow where I get some of these stories from that kind of do that. They kind of have to talk about R&B just as much as hip hop, even though hip hop is in the title of their website. And I wonder sometimes, like, what is up with that? Like, is it that quote unquote real hip hop fans just don't support enough for, quote unquote real hip hop websites and publications to remain strong? Or is it that the whole term and idea of being a real hip hop head is a thing of the past? Meaning you have more people who love hip hop, but also love R&B and also love gossip and social media stuff. So they kind of want it all in one place. And if you're run by, an ideology that's from like the 90s somewhere, not even throwing shade, but like where hip hop was like, yo, bars and lyrics and who's dope and dopest verse and all of that. That really don't govern hip hop as much as it used to, unfortunately. But nevertheless, you know what I'm saying? Big shout out to Ambrosia for Heads and all the people who contributed to that website. Very dope website. I use some of their stories right here on this very podcast. I don't think the site is necessarily down. So if you want to just go there and just browse because you've never been there, ambrosiaforheads.com. Just check out what's there, man. It was, sad loss for hip hop. The Notorious B.I.G. was honored with 2 new flavors of rap snacks. You say to yourself, Vegas, why are you talking about rap snacks? And I say to you, because I don't understand. I don't understand the fact that people actually eat rap snacks. And maybe that's because rap snacks came around when I was like maybe my freshman year in college, junior year in college. I just remember coming back to the hood. Because, when you away from the hood that long, you miss out on whatever's new, whatever everybody's eating or doing or whatever the case may be. And I remember seeing Rap Snacks for the first time, and I was like, there's no way in hell I'm eating anything in that bag. What is this? But people like them. And they like the fact that they got rappers on them. So Biggie has 2 new flavors, and the proceeds from sales of these 2 flavors, these new flavors, are going to go back to communities in need. So I guess Rap Snacks are cool with me. 50 Cent is putting together Pop Smoke's posthumous, I think that's how you say it, I always struggle with that word, album, meaning an album released after a person has already passed. He's putting the album together. Actually, Pop Smoke's funeral just took place today. If you're from the future, you know what to do. But I don't know. Now, even though I said my piece, my rest in peace, all of that regarding Pop Smoke, I wasn't a fan of his music. And I don't say that as a person who doesn't like his music. It's just that from what I heard, I just was like, meh, it's another dude out of New York rapping that way. I haven't heard enough. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe what I heard was one thing, but I can't say I'm excited. I'm curious to see what 50 Cent does with it. Who knows how far along Pop Smoke was with this album. Seems like he's getting a lot of features, so maybe he wasn't that far along, but we'll see. Hype Man, probably one of the greatest hype man of all time, or sidekick, or whatever you want to call him. Flavor Flav was dismissed, aka fired, from Public Enemy for some comments he made regarding Bernie Sanders. There was a statement released by Public Enemy, the group, regarding the situation, and I'm going to read from this statement they posted on Instagram. If you want to go read it yourself, you can follow Public Enemy at Public Enemy FTP. You know what that stands for? Nope, it's not about moving files either. Public Enemy did not part ways with Flavor Flav over his political views. Flavor Flav has been on suspension since 2016 when he was MIA from the Harry Belafonte benefit in Atlanta, Georgia. That was the last straw for the group. He had previously missed numerous live gigs. Wow. Album recording sessions, photo shoots. He always chose to party over work. Public Enemy Radio toured Europe and co-headlined with Wu-Tang Clan in May 2019 without Flavor. They have also done numerous benefit shows without Flavor. While Public Enemy Radio was moving forward, Flavor Flav was starring on the reality show Growing Up Hip Hop New York, where an episode featured his children discussing an intervention and putting him into rehab. It's time to move on, and everyone wishes Flavor well. That's like crushing to read from a person like myself who grew up on Public Enemy, one of my favorite groups of all time. Probably the other group that should receive a movie in the same vein of NWA, because there's a lot there. But Flavor Flav, the word on the street was that it had to do with Bernie Sanders. Public Enemy was performing like at a Bernie Sanders rally or whatever, and I believe Flavor said something. I can't remember exactly what he said or whatever, but I know he had something to say, or he did something, one or the other. But he says that it wasn't really about Bernie Sanders, and he says, I don't have anything against Bernie Sanders. So it's just kind of weird, but let's talk hip hop, right? Flavor Flav has kind of been going through this with Public Enemy for a minute, since the days of Flavor of Love, maybe even before then. This is kind of something they do. You know how Wu-Tang always argues with each other, and it seems like it's like beef or it's real or you'll never get another Wu-Tang album again. That's not the case. They kind of do this all the time. I can't imagine them like saying Flavor Flav is out the group for life. But then again, who's really checking for a Public Enemy album? The last time I heard one, it was complete trash. I don't know if that's because I hadn't heard a Public Enemy album in so long, or just because I don't know what Public Enemy is supposed to sound like in 2020, 2019, or 2018, whenever I heard it. So, who knows? Twista has accepted Eminem's Godzilla challenge. Now, the thing about this that I actually said on this podcast last week, but I edited out, was the fact that I want to hear Twista do the Godzilla challenge, right? Because if there's anybody who could do it, it is him. But I don't think Twista understands how social media and trends work. You get in on it when it's hot, when everybody's doing it and everybody's looking at everybody's videos of it. I know that was like last week, but it's too late. It's too late, fam. Now, the only way it will really get any kind of attention from social media and anybody who accepted this Godzilla challenge is if he does something so crazy with it that it makes people start to talk about it again. So we'll see what he does and, whether it's worthy of even paying attention to. Should be dope, though. It's Twista. Static Selector is going to release a new album called The Balancing Act on Nas's Mass Appeal Records. I got to tell y'all like this. Static Selector, to me personally, has been one of those DJs who's consistently kept real hip hop alive. Now, some will say it's between him and K Slay because they're the two DJs who consistently put out these compilation albums featuring many dope MCs. The only difference is, to me, is that K Slay will have a couple of joints like that, but he'll have a couple of records that sound like they're trying to be radio hits. Or he'll have a bunch of cats that, he's trying to put new cats on, and I'm not mad at it. But at the same time, I don't know, something about Static Selector's compilation albums just always sound better to me because they always feel like each one has a theme. And I don't know if that theme is related to the title or whatever, but the music always has a certain feel to it that's consistent through every record. So this one is supposed to have, a couple of the usual suspects like Joey Badass and some others. And also obviously featuring Nas. So I'm definitely looking forward to it. I usually like the majority of the compilations Static Selector puts out. So I can't see this being any different as far as, dopeness goes. De La Soul's Posthumous hints at a possible Tommy Boy reconciliation. This is on hiphopdx.com, so you can check the article out. Let's read a couple of quizzotes from it. Tommy Boy, this is Posthumous. Tommy Boy sort of came back to the table. We are looking to sort of get it going. Okay. At the end of the day, of course, it's money to be earned. We feel like we deserve it. But for us, it's really about the fans. At the end of the day, no one wants bad blood between each other. We just want it to be fair and to get the music out to the people. I did I think I did a whole podcast episode on this. As a matter of fact, I know I did a whole podcast episode dedicated to this situation. I agree with Tommy Boy and I agree with De La Soul. There's no reason why, regardless of whatever streaming service you use, whether it's Tidal, Spotify, Apple Music, There's no reason why you can't go on there and just learn about De La Soul through the history of their catalog. Or if you're a fan of De La Soul and like, yeah, I was a fan when they had 3 Feet High and Rising and Stakes is High and De La Soul is Dead and Blue Mind State, but then I stopped paying attention. And they had a couple of albums after that, a couple of them. And who knows, maybe if those albums are available, that one person was like, well, I never bought them, but now they're here on the streaming service, I might as well check them out. Because honestly, I've done that. Like, when T.I. was popping, like in the very beginning, when he first came, like his first 3 albums, I hadn't heard any of his albums. I only heard singles. I only heard, I guess B-sides of singles. I know that's some old school stuff, but whatever the equivalent of B-sides. I did hear other records, but I never heard his full album because, kids, there was a time where if you really wanted to hear an album and no one else had it that you knew that would let you hold it or get a copy or double tape of, you either had to go and buy it, steal it, or you just didn't hear it. Period. Now, we live in a time where I was like, oh, you know what? I'm going to go back and listen to T.I.'s early albums, because by that time, when Spotify and all that was out, I'd heard his more recent albums like Paper Trail and T.I. versus Tip, but I hadn't heard in their entirety his early albums. So I was like, man, I'm gonna just every day that I'm going to the gym, I'm gonna start with the first album, then the second album, then the third album, and I did that. And not only did I enjoy the fact that I was able to listen to T.I.'s whole catalog and get a real sense of his career from beginning to present day, it was all clumped in with everything else. So I, went down a rabbit hole of doing that with a number of albums I had never heard in their entirety. And I kind of feel like that with De La Soul, because I'm that guy who, after Stakes is High, I kind of was like checked out besides a couple of records here and there. So I never really got to hear a couple of those albums, AI series or whatever it is, albums that came out. And I wouldn't mind, just going through that, like, yo, let me listen to these. So I think it's a dope idea. Hopefully they can come to an agreement that takes care of De La Soul, because these cats is legends in the game, and, they still here and they still capable of putting music out. And the worst part about hip hop today is, and maybe this is music in general, certain artists, certain legends in different genres of music can easily be forgotten, because only the bigger artists are the ones that survive. You would think, if you're a young cat today and you know nothing, you would think the 90s is all Nas, Biggie, Tupac, and probably Jay-Z. And you're only putting Biggie and Tupac in there because, they live almost off the strength of their deaths, so people recognize their music. But Nas and Jay-Z kind of stand tall, but there's so many other groups and artists that's still around creating music that was right there with them. You know what I'm saying? And they could easily get forgotten if they aren't active, or if their music isn't available on a service that allows people to just listen to whatever. Think about it this way. I know I'm spending a lot of time on it, but think about it this way, right? Let's say young cat who doesn't know De La Soul, he's not going to go looking for De La Soul, right? We can agree. He's not going to go looking for them on a streaming service. But let's say he's like, yo, I just want to hear stuff that came out in the 90s. Let me go to this playlist that's curated. If De La Soul's music is not on the platform, it's not showing up in that playlist. Thus, he's not hearing a record that he might say, yo, who's this? I kind of like them. and going on to their catalog and listening to their music and then finding out they still make music and then going to a show maybe. Like, you know what I'm saying? All this stuff adds up. So hopefully De La Soul's catalog can be available on streaming services. I'm honestly looking forward to it. Nick Cannon says that he is not scared of Eminem or 50 Cent. He says that he can match whatever. I'ma match your energy wherever you at. I think he's talking about bars. Maybe in 50's case, he's talking about something else. I just want Nick Cannon to stop, man. I just want him to stop. I don't know who it is that's telling Nick Cannon that we care about him as a rapper. I think Nick Cannon probably has a song that he's really proud of out of the millions of records he made that never really got answered from 50 or Eminem, that he's really proud of, that he wants to put out, and he wants everybody to say, oh, Nick Cannon is actually nice. We don't care, dog. You put out 25 records dissing Eminem and no one cares. You know why? Because you're Nick Cannon. You're not, you know, you're not people respect your hustle, but people don't respect you as no rapper. We know them battle rappers helping you write them bars. We know that. Ugh. Kendrick Lamar teased, and this is where I saw it originally, on Instagram, something, right? We didn't know if it was an album. All we know is that all his pictures was gone or whatever, and he only had 3 or 4 photos up there with the words PG Lang. And people thought his account was hacked. But come to find out, it was not hacked. It's a new business venture. PG Lang is what it's called. And let's see if I can get some info. Well, the basic info, because I did read some of it. The basic info is that this will be a company that not only puts out music, but film, television, art, books, and podcasts. And it's supposed to be like a freedom of expression and type thing, and which is dope. You know, I think it's more of a media related situation than anything. But, and when I say that, I just mean, you know, all those different things. Like, so if you do a podcast or you rap or you sing or you do art, I think he just wants to bring in as many creative people as possible and push their creativity, regardless of what it is, behind this banner. I have to say I'm a little bit disappointed because I thought he was promoting an album. But who's to say this isn't the beginning of that? Because it probably is. Jadakiss finally released his new album, Ignatius. See, I know how to say it now. I think I said it right? Just came out. Hip hop heads on Twitter are debating back and forth whether it's complete trash or it's dope, or it's too R&B or too many hooks, or Jadakiss never really makes a good album. A number of cases. My take on it, you just got to subscribe to this podcast because I already put out a review of the album. Hip Hop Now Podcast Reviews is a new mini podcast, so to speak, that I put out to people who subscribe to this podcast. The first album I did was Eminem, Murdered by Numbers, and I did this Jadakiss album. And again, the reason why I did these albums in particular is because I tried to gauge the buzz, the anticipation of the album, and the aftermath on social media, and that tells me when I should either give impressions here on this podcast or do a full-on review. And I felt like Jadakiss album was worthy of a full-on review. So check that out. It's right here on the same dial. And I think, you know, I think people will dig the where I'm coming from, put it that way. I never try to really pick a side over another side. I really try to listen to these albums, and obviously there's your first impression. Well, put it this way. Obviously, there is your anticipation. Then there's your first impression. And then on the second listen, I'm more so like, okay, now I got through it once. Now let me listen to the lyrics, listen to the beats. Let me listen to the songs and the overall theme of this album and what he was trying to do. And once I kind of got that in, I might give it another listen while I'm doing something just to see if any of that really stuck with me, just to see how much I like something even more or didn't like something or like something now that I didn't like initially because I've listened to it with different ears. Same ears physically, but I'm just talking about, shedding some of the anticipation and the hoping and the wishing and, wondering. Once I get some of that out the way, I could just listen to it for what it is. So check that out on this very channel, Hip Hop Now Podcast Reviews. That's going to do it for me for this week. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at VegasWorldINC. And please know that this podcast is available wherever you listen to podcasts on your favorite podcasting app. All you have to do is search the words Hip Hop Now Podcast. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, comment if you will, and more importantly, share this podcast with people you know would enjoy this kind of content. Until next time, y'all, I am not a critic, I'm a fan. Peace.
Drop it on the random.